Hey everybody, we realized that we produced baby Vietnamese blue beauty rat snakes before even introducing this species to you all on the channel. So today we're going to talk all about the blue beauty rat snake, from where they live in the wild to how to take care of them in captivity. The Vietnamese blue beauty rat snake is native to Southeast Asia, specifically the Thailand, Vietnam, and Burma areas of Southeast Asia. This makes them a species of Old World rat snake, and they are quite a bit different than the New World rat snakes we see in North America. One of those differences is their overall body shape, and if you look at the blue beauties, I mean, they're gorgeous snakes first off, but they also have more of a thinner body to them. That's because this is more of an arboreal species living up in the trees, and having a thinner body makes them more agile and built for climbing around the branches. In comparison, our New World rat snakes in North America have more of a rounder body shape that's built for terrestrial life, or living on the ground. Because of their body shape, another difference between the Old World rat snakes and New World rat snakes is, although New World rat snakes, like corn snakes, will flatten out their cheeks kind of if they're trying to look intimidating, if they're feeling threatened, you know, they flatten out a little bit more horizontally, whereas the blue beauties will actually flatten themselves vertically when they feel threatened. So near their head, they will stretch out that skin more up and down like, or more vertically, to try to look big and scary to intimidate whatever is scaring them. Another one of their defense mechanisms is also a bit different, being an Old World rat snake. The New World species of rat snakes, like corn snakes and black rat snakes, will, when threatened, vibrate the end of their tail to sound like a rattlesnake to scare you away, whereas the blue beauties and other Old World rat snakes will actually waggle the entire tail of theirs to try to look scary. I personally think this is adorable though, and it's like a puppy wagging its tail, but they're not happy when they're doing this.
It's like a cat wagging its tail.
It's like a cat wagging its tail, exactly. And finally, another behavioral difference you'll often see in Old World rat snakes is when they are resting or in a resting position on the ground, they will often kink their bodies so they look like a tree root and less like an actual snake. This is a type of behavioral camouflage, and it might make you think they have kinks in their spine, but it's actually just them purposely looking kinky.
Yeah, the first time we got into these, it was, what's wrong with them?
Yeah, we initially thought that there was something wrong with them, but that's just how they are. In the wild, the Vietnamese blue beauty rat snakes will inhabit a wide variety of habitats. They're found in thick forests and agricultural fields. They're even found in mountainous areas, so they occupy a wide variety of different environments in the wild. They're also one of the largest species of rat snakes. These guys can grow to 7 to 8 feet. And being a semi-arboreal snake, or a semi-tree-dwelling snake, they, like we said earlier, have a bit of a thinner body shape to them to help them navigate through those branches. As babies, they start out as a beautiful olive green color, and then they turn even prettier as they age and mature, as they become this beautiful, like, slate blue color instead. Something I really like about this species is that they're like 3 snakes in one. They have this patternless start to their body, and then they have this crazy busy pattern in the middle of their body, and then they end with stripes. How cool is that? And they have just this incredibly long tail too, so it's like they're ridiculously big and have so many different patterns. They couldn't make up their mind what they wanted to look like, so they just adopted all 3 patterns. Now that you know a little bit about their natural history and where they live in the wild, let's talk about keeping the Vietnamese blue beauty in captivity. This species can live 15 to even upwards of 30 years in captivity. And since they are a very active species of snake, it's important to give them a large, roomy environment or enclosure that offers a lot of climbing opportunities. We recommend keeping adults in no smaller than a 6-foot enclosure, but obviously the bigger the better. We have kept our pair of blue beauties in a rack system before, and it worked, but after moving them into the display enclosure in our zoo, it seems like they are much happier, so I would highly recommend not putting them in a rack actually, and instead in a nice roomy environment. Obviously, babies can be kept in a smaller environment and then upgraded as they grow. We recommend, even though they do like to climb a lot, don't give them a vertically oriented enclosure. They still need a lot of that back and forth or horizontal space. So instead, their enclosure overall should be more horizontally oriented. Inside of their enclosure, you want to put all sorts of things for them to climb on and explore. Vines are definitely utilized by this species. Ours are out on their vines every day, just exploring, checking things out, begging for food, and so on. In addition to vines, you can also use a combination of cork bark and driftwood and fake plants and branches that you can disinfect, but after collecting them outside, you can give them all sorts of enrichment and they will love it. As far as hides go, they will utilize hides on the ground of their enclosure, especially if they're in a rack system and they don't have any opportunity to climb, they will use hides on the floor. But in a bigger enclosure, ours seem to prefer hiding in small crevices near the top of their cage, so this would be a good species to consider giving them a sky hide for. If you've never heard of a sky hide, it's basically a normal hide that you'd set on the ground of an enclosure, but instead flipped upside down and attached to the ceiling of the enclosure that they can then go inside. Blue beauties, I think, would really like something like that. We have something similar in our enclosure at the zoo, and they are always in it. It does seem like they each have their own personality, much like other snakes do. For example, our male here is much more outgoing and he's always climbing around his branches, he's all over his enclosure, begging for food, seeing what's going on with people looking at him in the zoo. Whereas our female is a bit more seclusive and shy, and she prefers just wedging herself in that uppermost crevice in the enclosure. Just like other snakes, you'll have to offer them a temperature gradient throughout their enclosure so that they can thermoregulate and move around as needed. We've found that a hot spot of about 85 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit works well for blue beauties, and the cool end can just slowly cool off into room temperature, and then they'll kind of equally use that space. If you have them set up in a rack system, you'll of course have to do heat from below, but being such big climbers and a diurnal species of snake, if you have them in any sort of display environment, we highly recommend heating from above to encourage basking behaviors. Next, let's talk about substrate for blue beauties. We have successfully kept these guys on aspen shavings, but I recommend using more of a tropical substrate to better replicate their natural environment. If you do want to use aspen, and a lot of people do, just make sure you have a humidity box or humid hide full of damp sphagnum moss for them to go into and rehydrate to promote healthy sheds. Whereas if you have just an overall tropical environment with more of a humidity retaining soil, you won't have to add a humidity box on top of that. For our pair, we currently use a combination of cypress mulch and eco earth. It seems like those two combined together do a really good job at maintaining proper humidity levels, but you could use one of the many other readily available tropical substrates out there like cocoa blocks or forest floor. Just make sure that their substrate isn't like super wet all the time, it's just lightly damp, because if they're always sitting on something wet, they're going to develop issues like scale rot. Being somewhat tropical, you can easily make their enclosure a bioactive one. If you want to do this, we recommend using a tropical bioactive soil like Terra Fauna from the BioDude or Reptisoil from ZooMed. Then just add some springtails and isopods to eat the shed skins and fecal matter, and you're good to go. You could even add live plants for them to climb on and create your own ecosystem for their environment. Speaking of humidity levels, we personally just keep their substrate damp and we mist them down occasionally, maybe like once a week, but we are always adding water to the substrate itself. If you're using aspen, then I recommend just always monitoring their humidity box and making sure that the moss in there is always damp. Next, let's talk about diet. In the wild, blue beauties will eat primarily rodents from the forest floor and birds from the branches on which they climb on. In captivity, though, you don't have to feed them birds. You can give them a complete diet by just offering appropriately sized rodents. We feed all of ours, from the babies to the adults, once a week, and we follow the general rule of thumb for arboreal snakes, where you just look at the thickest part of their body, and that's the size of the rodent that you feed them. There are some constricting species of snakes out there that can handle a rodent about 1.5 times the width of their body, but it seems like these guys, being more arboreal, they need to be more nimble and lean. I don't think they handle those huge meals as well as just something that matches their thickness. Lastly, let's talk about handling and interacting with your Vietnamese blue beauties. As you may have already seen, I've gotten bitten twice while filming this video. They can be difficult to handle. They're not really a good one to hand off to kids to play with. However, I haven't experienced this myself yet, but I have read that you can have very friendly individuals if you work with them from a young age, or just socialize them a lot when they're older. Like I said, I have a tough time believing that personally, but I've heard of it, so I guess it is possible. But ours, at least, really, I touched you. I touched you. That's all I did.
Touch me.
They're not super handleable in my experience, but they make up for it because they're beautiful. Overall, the Vietnamese blue beauty rat snake, in my opinion, is a very underrated species of snake. They are gorgeous, they get huge, they're active, inquisitive, they use every inch of their cage, and they make amazing display animals. Maybe not amazing handling animals, but they are incredible snakes just to observe. So I wouldn't consider this a good beginner species of snake, but if you already have some experience in snake keeping and you're looking for something a little bit more feisty or something more unusual, I would highly recommend the Vietnamese Blue Beauty rat snake. Especially if you add a little bit of planning for their enclosure build, you can have an epic centerpiece in your reptile room. So thank you everybody for watching today's video about the Blue Beauties. We love our Craigslist find of Blue Beauties. We got our pair actually for $200 on Craigslist, and this is a normally $500 snake for each one. So we got a screaming deal on them, and we absolutely love them. They are part of our zoo here at Snake Discovery, so everybody who comes is able to see them, even though he doesn't appreciate being used in videos or anything educational related. Any kind of handling.
He likes food.
He does like food, and that's about all he wants from me.
Yeah.
You're gonna tail
I like
rattle?
how he's slightly tail rattling.
Yeah, just a little flick here and there.
Get away.
Yeah, I kinda hate you, but
you're holding me.
you are holding me. Thank you everybody for watching today's video, and as always, thank you to our very generous Patreon backers. We love all you guys, and we'll see you next time. They're also one of the... Jeez, dude, sorry.
They're also super happy with everybody.
Yeah, he loves to be held, as you can see.
Get her. Get her in the face. It'd make great content.
Thanks. Since they're so active, it's recommended to give them, or we recommend giving them, no smaller than a 6-foot enclosure as a baby. Thanks.
He honked at you.
Yeah, he is super angry right now.
Yeah, he is.
I already have one bite wound that I'm trying to hide while we film. He didn't have to add another one. Let's look that way again.
Happy boy. Look at that
he's
smile.
smiling.
Aww.
Oh, he's so
Look
happy.
how happy he's smiling. Good boy. Now where's that tail wiggle?
No wiggles, just going straight to biting today.